Hey everybody, this is First Warn Storm Team Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich. Good Sunday morning. Welcome to the Sunday afternoon as well, for those that are just getting this afternoon. I want to do an update on Tropical Depression 14, which is going to become Michael probably later today or tonight, or maybe even early Monday. It doesn't really matter the timing, but it's going to happen at some point here in the next 24 hours. This system eventually is going to be causing a pretty significant impact probably on the Gulf Coast, but for the Carolinas, the question is how quickly this thing moves and how much rain we end up seeing. So here's the system. You can see it's way down here. It is organizing quite a bit more today than it did yesterday, but its proximity to land, which is Belize and the Yucatan Peninsula, right here is the circulation, is causing it to have a little bit more tough time kind of developing on this side. You see all the thunderstorms over here, but the circulation center is roughly right there. Let me show you a close-up view of it. This is the high-res visible image, and you can kind of see we've got a radar in Belize, which helps us kind of see this a little bit better, but you can see the circulation coming in here, all the thunderstorms exploding on the east side, but the circulation center is roughly right in there somewhere. Here's the track as of the 7 a.m. advisory. There'll be another one coming up here shortly. You can see the movement off to the north. Sometime on Tuesday into Wednesday, it could become a hurricane, and probably a minimal hurricane. The waters are super warm over the Gulf of Mexico. The one thing that's not super favorable is the southwest shear. But here's the interesting thing about southwest shear. If the storm moves with the shear, that southwest shear can actually help vent or actually produce really good outflow for the storm. So if it moves in the right direction, actually that shear could help it strengthen a little bit. Either way, it's not expected to be a significant hurricane, but it will be strong enough. And because it's going to be picking up speed, I certainly think storm surge is going to be an issue here in the Florida Panhandle, just because of the shape of the coast and that forward speed. And then long range into the Carolinas, you can see on Thursday into Friday, the system is moving quickly, but the track is still uncertain. It could be here and it could be here. Now, depending on where the track is, that's going to have a big influence on just how much moisture we're going to see. Now, as far as intensity forecasts, here's the intensity models, and notice there is a pretty big spread, but the majority of them have an at least category 1. A couple up here in the 2 to 3 range, which seems a little bit out to lunch. You see this second surge here. This is actually after it reemerges off the east coast. So it'll race over the southeast and then get back over water and then move away from the U.S., but it could intensify again as it moves away from the coast. So that's something to keep an eye on for the Canadian Maritimes, maybe eventually, Great Britain or Ireland in those areas. But for us, it's really this first surge that we're worried about. So let's look at the European model just to give you one indication. The European, the GFS, and most of the other guidance are kind of in the same agreement. Let me show you spaghetti plots just real quickly, just to show you how they are kind of pretty well aligned. I mean, that's pretty good considering the storm first form. But notice at the end here, there still is quite a bit of spread. But all the guidance has a general theme like this. And the interesting thing is most of the guidance has a pretty fast movement of the system once it gets out over the East Coast. So here's a quick look at the storm, and I'll show you a close-up view of it approaching. So we're going into Wednesday morning here, probably a hurricane somewhere down here, moving to the northeast. Then it starts picking up speed and moves into the Florida Panhandle late Wednesday night into early Thursday. And then look at this speed here. This is Thursday morning, right around 8 a.m. And then look how quickly this thing moves off to the east. Stays pretty close to the coast. This is by Friday morning at 8 a.m. somewhere in South Carolina, then moving quickly. And you can see the rain. There's heavy rain there, and this moves pretty quickly overall. So if it moves quick, that's a good thing. If it slows down, that would be a problem. That would mean significant rainfall could be likely. And let me show you just the forecast rainfall right now as of the certain track. Now, I actually am a little more concerned for heavy rain in the mountains because initially the southeast wind, and we've had some heavy rain in the mountains recently, could be a problem. But right now, these totals range from as much as 4 or 5 inches in the mountains to 2 to 3 inches across the Piedmont. It's these areas out east where we don't need the rain, South Carolina, North Carolina, that could see additional rainfall. Certainly something to keep an eye on. One of the things I like looking at is the flash flood guidance. So this is how much rain in 6 hours it would take to cause flash flooding. And notice most of these totals out here are in the 4 to 5 inch range. But notice back in the mountains, the totals are only 2 to 3 inches. And there's a small area of around 2 to 3 inches here. So if we get that rainfall in the 6 hour period, which is kind of what we're looking at here, flash flooding could be a concern. So I'll keep a very close eye on the potential for this thing slowing down at all, which would then become a much bigger rainfall threat for the Carolinas. So as far as the steering currents, the good news for us is this storm moving in is actually going to help break down the ridge along with a pretty good trough. So the main steering current is actually a good thing for us if we want to see cooler temperatures. This is the 500 millibar chart. So this kind of shows you the main steering currents. The first thing you notice is the monster ridge, which has been sitting over us. That's been baking us. But you see this trough here, and the flow of air is like this. So this is what's going to eventually steer Michael up to the northeast, and you can see the movement up to the northeast. As the trough digs in, the ridge actually builds to the east, and as we go towards Wednesday, you can see the setup ridge off the east coast, which is the clockwise flow, and then the trough digging in with the counterclockwise flow. So there's an avenue for this thing to race off. As this moves east and this moves east, this causes the whole thing to kind of spin up and move quickly off to the northeast as we go into Wednesday into Thursday. So you can see the movement pretty quickly, and here comes a trough on the back side, which then digs in. And this is why it gets so cool next weekend, because you can actually see that trough digging in across the east coast. And just to go a little bit ahead in time, first time in a while I can talk about a dip in the jet stream. That's much cooler air for us. So good news all in all, that's going to pick this thing up and move out. The problem is that's a lot of tropical moisture, folks, and if we live anywhere in the Carolinas, we know any rainfall would be an issue, so we got to keep an eye on the speed. This is all about the speed of the system. Let's keep our fingers crossed it picks up a ton of speed. As far as wind is concerned, maybe 40, 45 mile an hour winds with this, but it's really rain again. This is not a wind event. So something we'll keep an eye on is the speed of this system. So over the next couple of days, stay weather aware, especially in the mountains and foothills, and also along the coast, because this shift to the west or east will have a big impact on, or a big change on the type of impacts we end up seeing. Have a great Sunday, everybody. Of course, I'll be posting updates throughout the next couple of days to keep you up to date on what is now Tropical Depression 14, but will be Michael very soon.